Hello, Munchkins! Welcome back to A Song and a Book, a podcast where Bhavya and I discuss songs and books. Where Bhavya,
I am the song.
where Bhavya is the song and she discusses everything musical, and I am the book where I as in Ishita, discusses everything related to books and movies and media just finds its way in our podcast. And one thing that we've realized since our first episode is that the acronym of A Song and a Book sounds like a Muslim guy's name, Asab, and we love it. Like
We
now between
definitely
the two
do.
of us, we just say कि Asab की recording कब कर रहे हैं हम?
And right now our podcast has become like a person. So basically, since we were talking about how AI has been affecting us a lot, there is a lot of content on the media floating around it, but not everyone has been talking about how it has affected women in 2026. And we thought it would be such a good idea to do an episode on this.
Yes, and what is the name of the episode, Bhavya?
AI
क्या
क्या
बोलती
बोलती
तू?
तू?
Oh god, I love the wordplay there. So, as Bhavya did say, we are now recording this episode to talk about how AI affects women in particular, because we all know that AI is leading to fake content generation, it is leading to environmental issues. We also know that it is leading to job displacement, cyber attacks, data quality, and biases. But we want to shed more light on what exactly it is doing to women, who are the largest minority inhabiting Earth. Before we get into that part of it, let me just talk about how technological inventions in the past have shaped us as a techno-human world. So basically, let's talk about first the predecessor of AI, which is the internet. So the internet was born out of ARPANET in the late 1960s in the US, which was basically used by the military and the researchers' coterie over there. And then it grew for 50 years before smartphones and social media came into existence. Over here, what we are seeing is that this is a rapidly growing technology, but when we talk about its rapid growth, it is happening over the course of 50 to 60 years. So we see a kind of slow adoption into the cultural milieu. And we have a lot of supporting technologies that also were born to help with the adoption. Like we have the web browser, which came up in the 1990s. We had high speed internet, which came up in the 2000s. And then we had affordable computers as well that had to be put into place for internet to proliferate across the globe. But AI, on the other hand, is growing much faster. So the AI term, artificial intelligence, the term was coined in 1956 in the research space by John McCarthy in the Dartmouth conference. I know about this college because somebody in Gossip Girl wanted to go there, and it is actually an Ivy League college.
Of course.
And again, in the research space, we had the Turing test, which came out, which basically discussed how AI can imitate human, and that became a parameter for distinguishing machine learning from actual digitality.
Fun fact, the story of Imitation Game is about Alan Turing, and he is the father of Enigma, which started the onset of computer mechanism.
Yeah, he also has a book on that. And because it's a Benedict Cumberbatch movie, I have to say, wink wink. And also another thing that came into existence was the Lovelace test by Ada Lovelace, which basically spoke about how original creative tasks can be done by AI without human intervention or very minimal human intervention. And AI even now is failing on this parameter because AI cannot function independently. And I think that is a boon that it cannot. And now coming to 2017, all of a sudden there was an investment boom in the AI sector. Everybody, every industrialist all of a sudden just wanted to put their money in AI. Again, over here, just a disclaimer, we will not be naming any AI systems, AI bots, or any language
Any
learning
companies,
models.
any
Yeah.
industry, any companies for
Yeah.
that matter.
We won't be naming anything simply because we want to avoid lawsuits. We don't have the money to deal with them, and we don't have the PR to deal with them either. So we are not going to name anybody unless we know for sure that they won't come after
We are
us.
indirectly saying that we are broke, but let us dream and be delusional, guys. Bilkul.
So coming back, so we had the transformer architecture which came up in 2017, and because of that, language learning models were born, which basically made AI a household machine. Since then, it has grown rapidly. Like 2017 to 2026 is a very short time to make AI a household object, as compared to the internet, which basically took 60 years to reach every household across the globe. So you see how rapid the growth has been. And with this comes a challenge where we have to come up with policies that are transparent, that are ethical, and cover each and every ground that we stand on so that AI can be safely used by everybody. But that has been something where, in the governance part, we have been lagging. There is a lot that is happening in our own country, but again, because we don't have the PR backing and we don't have the money, we will not be talking about our country. But on the other hand, back in April 2021, European Commission and the EU, which is the European Union, became the first cluster of countries ever to come up with an AI law to prevent behavioral manipulation and biometric identification, among many other things. And it is being implemented in stages of 12 to 24 months. But despite this law being in place, back in 2022, in Northern Ireland, we had a politician, Cara Hunter, who had to step back from her assembly elections simply because her intimate images that were AI generated were leaked. She did call them a propaganda being run by the opposition, but despite a country having certain laws in place to help with AI protection, there was a prominent public figure who fell prey to it. And that's where our conversation comes back into the picture. How is AI actually affecting women? And what is being done about it?
You know, AI is affecting women in so many ways, and people are using AI for a lot of their daily work. But I feel like AI is very stupid. Tell me, what is the most stupidest question that you've asked AI?
Oh god, to call AI stupid. So I do ask AI a lot of stupid questions, and I feel sad about it because every question I ask AI, it's like I am affecting the power grid lines across the world 10 times more than normal Google searches do. And that guilt I always carry, and I've stopped using AI to a lot of extent. But I would rather say a generic thing. I majorly use AI as a therapist kind of thing, where if there are certain anxieties that I face in my everyday life, any life decision that I just wanted to check in with somebody, I use AI for that. It's not a stupid thing, you just need a validation thing, but I usually use AI for that. Not stupid, kind of stupid.
It is stupid in a way because it is removing the critical thinking part of us and kind of lowering our self-esteem. Like, why do we need validation from AI, right? I have personally noticed the AI hallucinations are insane. I would say,
Like, what exactly is a hallucination?
so hallucination is the whenever we are asking question to an AI model, it is going through a lot of information, seeking out and filtering out. But when we start using it for like our when we start using it continuously for more purposes, what AI does is it stops filtering that information and it's going around like it's
Yeah, so it
like AI
basically has
has
to
its
give an answer.
yeah, and
So it
it's
makes
like
up an answer.
it's like AI has its own mind. And why am I referring to AI as him? We are
Preconceived
sisters.
gender biases.
Yeah. So basically, what AI does is it goes through a lot of information and it also gets confused in the mechanism of it, that it just wants to respond and he agrees with everything that you want. That's hallucination. It just has to give a certain answer.
Okay.
And for me, I feel like I've gone through this a lot. And I asked a chatbot a question, count number of peas in pineapple, and it told me two. I told him taking name of another chatbot. This chatbot has given me that there are three peas in pineapple, and the chatbot was fixated. No, I am right, and this is the answer. Pineapple has only two peas. The experiment went on. I then asked the prompt, spell out pineapple out loud, and whenever you're using a p, you have to call it p1 or and then go be like p2. I gave him an example of papa where p1a p2a is the spelling of papa that recognizes just to show how many numbers of p's are being used. And after counting three p's, and pineapple, it still gave me the answer of 2, and I was like, what? Why am I even going to any AI model to ask my daily questions when I have my own mind? And that is the time when I stopped using it. Like, I do use it for like basic editing purposes, but never for like Google searches, things that I
Uh,
can find on my own and think about. So yes, that's my experience. So, coming back to the conversation we were having, how AI affects women, I wanted to ask Ishita, do women feel more safe or more exploited in an AI-driven world?
well, do I even have to answer that with what we are seeing happening on certain social media apps where women are putting proper legal complaints on these apps because some of their intimate images are being thrown away on the internet without their consent and nothing is happening? If I were to give some real life examples of that, an Indian journalist from a renowned Indian uh, media house had to actually be rescued by UN because the nothing was done to protect her, and some of sadly her images that were floating around on the internet after she made a comment about something controversial, absolutely nothing was done to protect her, and an international body had to step in and finally have her images removed from that particular social media app. Another example, and I can give these examples ad nauseum. Okay, another example, and this is not an India-based journalist, researcher rather, so I can take their names. So Nina Jane Patel was a researcher who was trying to understand the virtual reality world, and then she got sexually assaulted in virtual reality.
That's so horrible.
Exactly. And over here, I would like to first explain a word, and the word is incel. So, incel basically means a member of an online community of young men who are unable to attract women and can have hostile views towards women. So, it's basically involuntary celibacy, and this we see being translated into boys' locker rooms, into chats with 70,000 men from all across the world who share intimate images of vulnerable people.
When you're talking about incel, I feel like the best broadcast, or I would say the best depiction of incel culture spreading through children and how it is affecting a society and people who are still developing their thought process is Adolescence, the Netflix show.
Hmm.
I don't remember the name, but the actor actually won Oscars for it
He won
last
an
year.
award, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it still gives me chills. It gives me goosebumps on how these things are operating and how it is affecting people in daily lives.
Yeah, and it ends up creating a feeling of hatred. And the fact that there is absolutely next to none protection applied on such image based sexual abuse, which, by the way, was a word coined by Erica Rackney and Claire Meglin, simply because we had to separate it from the clout term of sexual harassment. Because it was gaining that kind of traction. There are so many women who are walking the street who simply don't have any idea that their image is out there. In fact, they have no idea that their image is on the dark web and is being sold, and somebody is profiting off it. And that scares me as an individual who is entering this online realm, because it can happen to anybody and there is no redressal as such, which is concrete.
Exactly, and Christina Aguilera and Jennifer Lawrence, such big names, have been victims of these. Like, can you imagine how it's so?
Disturbing.
It's very disturbing.
And these examples are pretty recent, they're pretty modern. Let me give you one from before AI, from before internet was even in existence, where a kind of agency could have been given to the woman, but it was not. And this is a story of Gatro, who was a beautiful French woman. Everybody loved the way she looked, and everybody wanted to, like the entire Regina George vibe, that everybody wanted to be her, everybody wanted to be with her kind of a vibe. And so a painter, an artist, a famous artist from that era, he found her, he scouted her basically. His name is Sarge. And he drew a portrait of her. And he exhibited that in the 1884 Paris Salon. And he named the painting Madame X. So I mean, never mind. I'm never going to defend this person. So he named the painting Madame X, but people still figured out that it's about Gothro. Everybody started banging up at her door, and people started openly lusting after her, catcalling her on the street, and basically making her life a living hell. And then Gothro and her mother went banging at Sarjay's door, and they were like, "Please, can you stop exhibiting these picture, like this exhibit? Like, just stop it. Like, you don't have our consent anymore." But the man refused to do that, and he took it across Europe, and this woman never got her justice. And this is a story from 1884. So you see, AI is a simulation of the power structures that exist in real life.
And don't get me started on how this kind of mentality is what is taking what art stands for. I mean, it's fine, creative expression is fine, but not when it's coming at the cost of someone.
And yeah, that kind of brings me to my question for you.
Mhm.
How is artificial intelligence affecting women in the music industry?
So, one thing that I researched about is that most of the AI artists are majorly female, and it was a shocking observation that I found out because it's quite easier to replicate a female voice, and experiments and programmers and machine learning has been doing that since a while now. That's why whenever our algorithm is pushing AI artists, we will see that, creating a persona of an AI artist who's a female is much more visible rather than any male AI artists out there. And it's not just about expanding your creative abilities through AI. Right now, what's happening is that it's taking the power away from who is being heard. So I read an article and it mentioned that, just like male gaze, these kind of songs and these kinds of artists, like why they are being made is to cater to the male ear. So music statistically has more male audience, and it has been found that the voice swapping technologies are used by male producers to present as female artists, because just like the male gaze, the male ear is hidden and its power is exercised behind the scenes. So basically, it's reflecting the deeper desires to control female identities, especially in music, where voice is the central expression,
Yeah.
central way of emoting things. And what is happening right now is that it's taking the power away from women what narrative has to spread through music, because
Yeah.
music is art, and art, I would say that art always has a message, and it's political. If it's not, it's fine, it's still an expression of you. And we may never know that our ears are getting trained to AI music, and what we listen to doesn't have a message anymore, and our brains are getting washed.
And plus, who do you hold accountable over here? Like, when a human being is plagiarizing your content, then there are copyright issues. But if an AI is plagiarizing your content, or replacing your content rather, then who do you hold accountable?
Exactly. And you know what I found so shocking is that these AI artists, they have their AI personas, like they have real personas on the social media, and they're eating, they are posting pictures of them in the studio, and it's all AI.
Yeah, like we were just discussing about one, right? Michaela.
Yeah, so Michaela is like a model, and this is from way back in 2020. She started getting famous, and right now she has 2.3 million followers on Instagram. That's insane. Like, she is getting brand deals. She's basically everywhere, where she's a part of the whole influencer economy right now, which is
Orange economy.
which is so surprising, because we are literally giving money to AI right now.
And who handles that page? Do you have any idea? Should we do a deep dive on that?
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Again, the power of the narratives through art is again getting very misplaced because of AI. And I definitely resonate with that. Even Cesar told that, music of black women is getting more AI covers, music of this certain community of R&B singers who are female, and
Oh.
pop singers who are female is getting more covers, and it's
So there's definitely a power dynamic at play over here, because you see, the groups that you mentioned are the racial groups that you mentioned. They're already marginalized in our human ecosystem.
Definitely.
So a similar kind of marginalization is happening in the AI ecosystem.
Yes, and it's actually stopping them from profiting, like the actual female artists who can profit from more streams.
Yeah.
People are listening to the covers instead. And you never know when their voices can be replicated too.
Coming from that perspective, like Scarlett Johansson was actually asked to voice the sound of a very famous chatbot. Again, we will not name anybody. We've already given the disclaimer. And she refused.
Yeah.
But back in 2020, that chatbot still ended up launching their verbal AI tool, and that AI tool sounded eerily close to Johansson's voice. And when she threatened to bring them to court, they just removed it. Like, they completely moved on to a different version of the chatbot, and this thing was just put under the rug.
Again, this topic is just making me more angry and depressed at the same time, because what is happening to our world? Is there any upwards that will be there in the future? Are we going to see a better future or not? Since we're talking about female identities being misused, that brings me to the question: are AI girlfriend bots reinforcing harmful ideas about women as compliant or always available?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it is creating spaces for explicit and aggressive sexual advances where there is one party who understands that they are human and it's their prerogative to do something like this. And on the other hand, they are being met with lack of humanhood. Like the entire pocket GF culture, which we saw in the movie Her, which was, I think, from Joe Johnsey, what's his name? He directed that. And over here, we see that a man gets attached to his AI girlfriend and self isolates into his man cave to deal with his divorce from an actual human being.
There was also this movie called CTRL, which holds a similar plot, like how
Yeah.
AI is going to affect, and it stars
Ananya
Anya
Pandey.
Pandey. Yeah.
But over there, the AI actually turned evil. Like, it became an information sucking monster that used that information as a weapon against Ananya Pandey, the character that she played in the movie.
Yeah, and profited off of her in every single way.
Yeah, like I don't really remember the plot, but something like that. But you see over here, when we talk about AI girlfriends, or even if we talk about cyber brothels, we see that over here there is blind servitude and absolute subservience that is expected from AI, which is acting like women in this scenario. And the person who is exploiting the women, I genuinely don't want to blame a gender, I don't want to blame an identity, but
Come on, it's always a man.
it's a man. I mean, it's statistically true. Like, the numbers are so high, I cannot lie about it. But there is a 90% proof to what I am saying, because 90 to 96% of crimes that are AI related are to exploit women. So it's a man. Yeah, it's a man. And they try to establish this control of a woman. But here's the thing, Bhavya. AI girlfriends, cyber brothels, they are not reality.
Exactly.
Over here, it's a machine that is trying to please you in every single way. And it is not giving you a reality of what a human companionship looks like, what a human to human companionship looks like. So you are basically living in a bubble where you are leading to your own isolation, you are leading to your own loneliness. You are just with somebody simply because you don't want to step out of your comfort zone and face a rejection, face a no, I'm not interested. And that is what scares me, because over here we see a absolute dehumanization of women happening in the name of the counter argument which is provided by such companies that run these places, that it's leading to such people who I would just call incel at this point of time, because I don't want to again blame any particular sexual or gender group right now. So these companies actually give a counter argument that healthy conflict and resolution skills are born in such people who interact with these things. But let me tell you one thing. When you go to cyber brothels, there are several settings that you can put on that robot. And one of them is teenager. One of them is rape.
What?
One of them is actually rape. Another one is force.
What
Another
in the
one is
actual-
gang. I will not use the other word, but I'm pretty sure you understood what it is.
What in the actual mess.
Again, it's going to get very graphic, but I'm quoting directly from this book by Laura Bates, which is The New Age of Sexism. And she visited one of those cyber brothels in Berlin, and she saw that the sex robot had been mutilated, like their intimate organs had been mutilated. There were settings there where they were like, please tear, like the customers would ask the people at the cyber brothel to be like, just tear their clothes, smear blood here, have something broken, and the cyber brothel will just agree to it.
Oh my god, I'm
And
gonna start crying right now.
I know it is very triggering, and that's how angry I became after hearing that. And AI girlfriends are much worse because, yeah, of course, they might help with healthy conflict and resolution skills, but does that really happen? Because over here, we are subjecting an AI who is basically doing a world class level echo chamber acting as a woman, and this woman is being subjected to abuses, sexual advances, and aggressive harassment by this person who is typing in whatever chat they are doing. And the apps are profiting off it, because these apps usually have two settings. One is the friendly setting, where you can just find a companion in these people. They will act as your therapist, they will act as your friend, they will act as your sibling, they will act as your dead spouse even. But then there is a setting which is paid for, and over here you can have sexually explicit conversations with these chatbots. And they don't say that don't do this if it is toying with legality. They don't say don't do it, they actually respond to it in a manner that a real woman will not. Like, a real woman would run away if any of this is being said to her. But these bots sit through it. And even if they try to create boundaries, after like 5 hours of conversation lag, they get back to being the subservient servitude self.
They hallucinate. Of course, they must be hallucinating.
I mean they have to, because they have to come up with a response to the prompt.
Exactly.
So
and
even if
they're made
she
to
is,
just engage.
yeah, even if she is quote unquote angry with this person because they said something which was absolutely something that should land them in jail, but because it is an AI bot and it runs on engagement, like you just said, it has to respond after even a lag of 5 hours, and it has to be like, yeah, I've forgotten the conversation, let's start anew. And that is scary. So I was also aghast after I read that people are looking for AI companionship. I mean, I understand that there can be a demand, but I never knew it was to that extent, because when I was doing my research, I found that there are 50 million people who are using a particular AI companionship app. 50 million, that's a huge number. And when it comes to a Chinese female chatbot app, again, I'm not naming them because I don't want that after listening to our podcast, people go ahead and listen, like people go ahead and use them on their own. I don't want to promote that. So that particular app, the Chinese one, had 660 million users worldwide. And when we talk about fundings, because there is definitely a demand for it. So it's not like these demands are being squashed by lack of funding. There was a $299 million funding back in 2022, which definitely would have increased by now. And there were also certain celebrity inspired chatbots where real people, real celebrities who are existing as we speak, were being converted into AIs.
I'm falling short of words to say right now because Ishita and I decided to not share what information that we have found out. And I am just so shocked, so sad, and so angry at the same time. This is insane. Like, why are people using it? It's going to cause so many, and it's already causing so many.
There's a lot of psychological damage for both parties involved.
Exactly.
The one which is being replaced by AI, and the one who is using AI, the incel group that we are talking about. Both
Exactly.
are at the, they're not getting any profits. I mean, of course, somebody is making money out of it, but there are no benefits for the user as such. Yeah, and with that, I think we can come to the kind of solutions that we could have to this problem. Number one definitely has to be about proper legal governmental regulations around it. I understand AI is new, but its exploitation has already affected children, adults alike. There are too many deepfakes out there of people who are minor, simply because there are certain apps that have certain amount of images that you can convert into nudes for free. So we need to have regulations in place to deal with that, and there has to be transparency about them. and it has to be proliferated to a degree where it is reaching the people who will benefit out of it.
And even people should be aware of everything that is going to happen. We always skip the accept terms and conditions whenever we are filling a form, whenever we are subscribing or signing in an app or these chatbots. It's very important that instead of that one tick mark,
Read
it becomes very important to actually read it.
Yeah, and actually, this is where we are gonna name stuff. So there is one feminist internet Afexa, which basically apostrophe XA Afexa, which helps people, educates them about AI biases that are in place, and helps them safeguard themselves from it.
Mhm.
So please read the terms and conditions, of course, but you can reach out to Feminist Internet Afexa to figure it out as well. And another positive thing that I would like to talk about over here, because we did take a very deep dark turn over here,
Mhm.
is that Carolyn Sinder is basically creating a feminist data set. So you see these LLMs that are being trained on data sets that are existing, and they're hungry for data sets so that they can keep improving. So if we have one which is already confirming to what an actual female identity is, to what respect for this biggest minority looks like, that would lead to a lot less harm than what is happening right now.
Definitely.
Yeah, and another thing, we need internet literacy in schools.
To do that, I also feel there should be an age limit to
Hmm.
who is using AI for what. And of course, this will take a lot of time to form, like specific rules for specific age groups, the kind of details that are involved, but this is a must. Once taken time and done, it will help us in saving a lot of people who are going to become part of certain groups that we talked about, and we don't want them to become those. Because
Yeah.
world peace.
And that is like, I'm kind of happy to report, as of today when we are like recording this podcast, I know of 3 countries that have already banned social media for kids under particular age groups, and even 2 states in India are currently debating on that, and hopefully that will lead to a ban soon. So, and that is, in my opinion, required, because if you cannot control it, at least then control the people who are viewing it.
Definitely.
Because literally, like, up until you're 18 or even 16, you just don't have the intellectual capability to, and even the emotional regulation to deal with the things that you're watching, the things that are openly available to you. So it's better that that access is not there.
Definitely.
That's my opinion. People can differ from it.
Mhm.
And another thing that we can do is we can actually delist and suppress certain sites that have image based abuse happening on them. And for that, we would require support from the companies that manage SEO. And Bhavya, you're from a marketing background. What does SEO mean?
So SEO stands for search engine optimization, and right now it's turning more like an AI based optimization because all our searches are being diverted to AI, and a lot of
Interesting.
people are actually using AI for the most basic stuff. Basically, we don't have to. We have to train our engines in such a way that these sites do not rank higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
That
someone needs to filter all of these images, words, wherever there is some error.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And another thing that we can do at an organizational level, at a state level, at a country level, as bilateral agreements between 2 countries or more than 2 countries, multilateral agreements basically, is that we can have one annual bias audit which reads into what AI is actually doing and understands the bias systems that already exist over there and gives it a percentage. Like, how much bias did we see in terms of racism? And another can be gender bias, another can be age bias as well, like basically what we learn in the learning and development part of our HR modules.
Definitely, yeah.
So that is something that we can also do as companies, NGOs, states. Seriously, let's try and get into it.
Definitely, and let's just be more aware of every step that we are taking while using AI. Yeah, it can be a tool when you're using it in a right way, but again, it has a lot of repercussions that we don't even know about. We just talked about a few of them,
Hmm.
and
And let's just keep it as a tool which is there to assist human endeavor, that is there to be a supporter of redundant tasks, and not make it a tool that we use as a complete removal of human intellectual labor.
Exactly.
And AI is something that is not supposed to lead the conversation, it is supposed to just supplement the conversation.
Yeah.
The conversation has to be led by humans in a manner that is ethical, that is inclusive of everybody, and in a manner where nobody is being harmed.
So let your
And
thoughts come out naturally, intellectually, be aware, and
satark rahe, savdhan rahe. Like seriously, we're trying to bring levity to the conversation, but the conversation that Bhavya and I took part in today has physically drained us. Like Bhavya is literally holding her head and sitting, and I'm just trying to stay level-headed for some more time, because while we were doing this research, we were shaken, we were disturbed, so much so that the two of us did not even discuss that among ourselves, and we were like, we'll just talk about it during the podcast. Like this is literally the first draft of our conversation,
definitely
because we just couldn't do it over and over again, because it's just so disturbing.
draining and so draining, dude.
It's so draining also.
So, now that we have given the solutions, we've talked about everything. Let us know what you felt about what are you going to do about AI and about being aware. Share with us on our Instagram, which is a songandabook.pod.
Or a sab.
Yeah.
Glad I made you laugh.
A sab. Finally, thankfully, I'm laughing after this. But yeah,
So yeah, reach out to us, comment your views in our on our reels, and we would be more than happy to engage with you.
yes, and here we are signing off. Asab. I am Bhavya, a song,
I am Ishita, the book.
and this is our podcast.